name is Roxana Hadadi. I am a TV critic for Vulture. And thank you. And I'm so excited to be here to talk about what we do in the shadows. I'm sure you guys are excited too. This is a show that has nearly caused my death because I watch it with my partner while we eat dinner, and I choke with laughter a lot. So thank you for that. I really appreciate that. So we are joined today by 5 of the people who make this show so hilarious, and I'm going to introduce them to you guys. So we have with us executive producer and showrunner Paul Sims, executive producer Sam Johnson, supervising producer Sarah Naftalis, and executive story editors Jeremy Levick and Rajat Suresh. Thank you guys. So before we even get started, I'm gonna say something that might be sincere and disgusting, but I do want to say congratulations on the outcome of the writer's strike. It was a really historic labor movement. It's awesome that you guys are here to talk to us about the show. And I'm sure everyone already knows this, but the show is based on the 2014 film. It's very quickly grown into its own expansive world. And something I want to ask first, which, requires answers from all of you guys, I'm sure, is just how do you start? How does the writer's room start each season? There are long-running storylines throughout the seasons, right? There are also episodic hijinks that happen. How do you guys start that work?
Oh my gosh! Before I answer that, I'd also like to point out that we write the show, but it takes even more people to write the show, and they're all sitting here in the front row, but they're not
I love
up
that.
here.
Okay.
Got Zach, Max, Shayna, Jake. We just thought it would be good for camaraderie to have them sit there and look at us and wonder why they're not up here also. I don't know. We start every season just by spitting out every idea we can think of and putting it on a 3x5 index card and taping it to a wall.
Okay.
And if there's any point I want to make here tonight, because I hate it when people talk about comedy and that kind of thing, but here we are.
Yeah, why not?
Don't use whiteboards. Use index cards. That's it. That's my big point.
Why?
Because then you can take it, you can move that there, you move that there, move that there. And then when the season ends, thank you, index cards, yes.
Yes.
These guys
Here we
love
go.
it. And then when the season ends, the ones that you didn't use for stories, you put them in a little cardboard box. And the next season, when you're like, oh God, I can't think of anything, you go through the old box.
Pull out the box.
Yes.
What I'm hearing is next year Vulture Fest sponsored by index cards.
Yes.
Okay, great. I love that. Okay, so then what are some of the things on the 3x5 cards? Are they
Well, smart ideas and stupid ideas. I mean, sometimes everything gets written down and put up there. There was one card that was up there for 4 writing seasons.
Okay.
That I wrote down because I thought it was just the stupidest idea ever. That just said Nandor goes to outer space, and it was sort of up there as a joke. And then if you saw last season, we actually did. They did Nandor goes to outer space. Sam, what else? What else do we put on the cards?
I think there was Cool Guy.
Yeah, vampires meet cool guy. We haven't done that one yet.
Yeah,
really.
so stay tuned.
Vampire Vapes Blood. That made it into the show.
Vampire Vapes Blood sat around for a while before it actually got done. That's right.
Jeremy, did you and Rajat have any that you remember?
They didn't actually come up with anything.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Sure. Let's just put them on blast. Okay.
Nandor plus Guillermo plus Kiss.
Well, yeah. Obviously. We'll get there. Don't worry. Okay, so then I guess my question then is how do you actually formulate that into episodes?
I feel like when I hear people talking about this stuff, they in retrospect, it's easy to say there was a plan. I have no idea how we do it. We put all that stuff up on cards, and then the ones that make us laugh. It's easy afterwards to go here's the plan. Here's how we did it. It's chaos that gradually gets whittled down into something that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, can I just say that as the oldest person possibly in this room right here now, it's such a incredibly loose process compared to any other show. It is very much well, you're off to write an outline, and here are your 4 index cards with Cool Guy, Nandor in space, and
blood vaping.
Blood vaping.
Just make something out of that. Put it all together.
We'll see you in a week.
Okay, well then the thing that I would ask then is like each season operates a little bit as a reset by the end, right? So I'm curious how you guys find that line of how much permanent change you incorporate into each season.
Well, because they're vampires and they've been alive forever and they never really change, there's not too much permanent change or growth, except for maybe Guillermo. But I think what happens is we write the end of the season with some kind of cliffhanger, and we have no idea how we're going to get out of it. But it's the end, and we'll deal with that next year. So a big part of starting every writer season is how do we get out of this hole we dug ourselves into, and what do we do about that?
Okay, so something that we mentioned, Sam, that is like, you guys have worked on a lot of TV shows. I'm going to embarrass you by reading some of the credits, just because I think they're incredibly impressive.
Sam, stand up.
That's not embarrassing.
No, it is. Come on,
Well,
these
just
shows
don't-
are great.
All right, just don't name the bad ones. All right, go ahead.
Okay, sure. Yeah, that's easy. Okay, Paul. Atlanta,
Yes.
Girls,
Yes.
News Radio,
Yes.
Larry Sanders,
Yes.
Bored to Death, personal fave.
Okay.
Yeah. And Flight of the Conchords.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Sam, Hot in Cleveland, How I Met Your Mother, Frasier, News Radio, formative experience for me, Daria.
Oh, that's right.
Okay, for all of us, and Beavis and Butthead.
Yes.
Okay. Sarah, you worked on Silicon Valley, Jeremy and Rajat.
You can move on to the next question.
Yeah, okay. And Jeremy and Rajat, Stephen Colbert presents Tuning Out the News and Pitch Perfect Bumper in Berlin. I ask this because all of these shows have elements of absurdity, but they're not like orgies with dolls and mansion murder mystery.
I feel like Jeremy Rajat's credits were good enough because the way they got hired is from us seeing their funny videos that they make themselves
Yes.
that are on YouTube, which
Yes.
I think are better than any of their actual credits, except for maybe Bumper in Berlin. That was a good one. What was the question?
I list all of these because I feel like
Thank you, Paul.
what we
welcome.
do in the shadows has like a lot more freedom, right? Because they're vampires, there's supernatural stuff, you can do odd things, bizarre things. I would assume it's easier to write that, but I'm wondering if that assumption is wrong, if the freedom is actually difficult.
The freedom is difficult, but there's also there's built-in rules, which we argue about, and about what can vampires do, what can't they do. Do you have to invite do they have to invite them into a house? Can you see their breath when it's cold outside because they're already dead? Can you see their reflections in a bus window, or do we need to pay thousands of dollars to remove that digitally in post? But we spend a lot of time arguing about the rules, which of course are all made up anyway. But that gives us some sort of structure where it's not just it's absolute chaos and anything can happen. And as far as thinking of ideas that where I ever went like, ugh, that feels wrong, was something that involved a busload of cheerleaders getting killed by vampires. That's right. I was against that, guys. I don't think that's right.
Taking a stand, putting that on the
that's
record.
where I'm going to make my stand.
Okay. And then I wanted to ask this later of Jeremy and Rajat, but yes, there are very iconic videos that you guys have made online. I will say, and maybe this is like, I don't know, too difficult of a question to answer, but how do you go from writing that, right, which I believe are like shorter, they're not episodic length. How do you become writers who are writing episodes of TV? Is the process different? Is the process the same? How do you guys approach episodes?
Well, all of our pitches in the room revolve around us doing selfie-style videos. Somehow working that into the script.
And I will also say Nandor was in our videos. He was there.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you for that. Yeah.
We encourage everyone to revisit
Like, try
the
to
videos.
find Nandor and like go back, watch the videos.
Okay.
Try to find Nandor.
Okay.
Ironically, we actually wanted Jeremy and Rajat to be. If anyone
See the
watched,
clip.
is it in the clip?
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll talk about that after the clip.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're talking about all these things like writing in the room, but obviously it is also important. I mean, this came up a lot during like strike talks. It's important for writers to be on set during filming. Yeah. So I'm wondering if you guys can talk a little bit about how that works for this show. Like how much are writers present there? What is the on-set atmosphere like? All that sort of stuff.
As the show has gone on and on, it's required less of us being there and making sure that the actors know their characters so well, and you know, there's a lot of ad-libbing and improvising in the show. You know, usually we get 1 or 2 takes that's as scripted, and we script the show very heavily, but we want it to appear loose, and then we let them, you know, just do whatever they want. And by the time it gets to editing, we don't remember if they came up with it, if we came up with it. But no, all the writers actually have come up to. We shoot in Toronto. I was about to say unfortunately, but that's no. We don't. It's hard to be away from our wives and kids.
Sure.
But all the writers have come up to be on set, and then do we actually end up going to set, or we just kind of hang out?
It's a nice mixture.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some of it is keeping morale
Yeah.
while you're shooting all night. And then I feel like there is always something where you're like, oh, this seemed really funny when it was us in the room. And then hearing it, maybe it needs a few more alts.
Yeah.
So that there's a good reason we're there.
Yeah.
I mean, COVID was terrible when we were there because we just couldn't be on the set, and there was like so much gear. There's so many layers of protection for the actors that it was very difficult to get to them, to talk to them. So like a very elaborate system of whatever was happening on stage was shown on monitors in our offices, which is still kind of in place. And then you call down to the director to say, can you have whatever, Matt Berry, say this line slightly differently. And like, it's sort of weird because the directors who get these texts from us saying, could you do this? Are sometimes they're like, yeah, sure. And sometimes they're like, I didn't get that text.
For some reason, my self-service died, and I didn't see that note. But okay, that leads into my next question, which is like, how do you balance between writing for the characters and writing for the performances? Is there a difference?
No, I don't think so. I mean, Rajat?
I'm glad you asked me. I mean, the characters is one thing for sure.
But then
The performance,
that's a whole other
completely other
ballgame.
thing, yeah.
And yet, similarities exist.
You wouldn't have thought that, huh?
So insightful.
I actually do, in all seriousness. After we wrote our first script, afterwards, I was like, are we supposed to, like, account for the like performances? Like, I don't know. I just didn't think about it at all. Mm-hmm. And then I asked another writer, and they said no. So, not actually that interesting of a story.
No, so to circle back, the characters.
Yeah, it's different
that's like
but similar.
one. Yeah.
What else is up?
We were told to like be active listeners and throw to other people. So Paul, like,
Yeah.
Sam, do you have other thoughts on that?
No, I'm just eager for the next question.
The next question is sort of a continuation of that question.
Awesome.
Cool.
Which is that there are so many lines and phrases from this series that have taken on like lives of their own. Like Nandor's fucking guy, or Bat, or Colin's guess what, or New York City, which I won't even attempt to do. But it's sort of a continuation of that question, which is like, do you write with an anticipation of how actors will say certain lines, or are those the things that are happening on set, and that's what's like helpful about you guys being there?
That's a combination, and a lot of times, like Nandor saying "fucking guy" was written, but the way he said it was so funny, we started doing it more. Anything Matt Berry says in that voice is funny. So New York City is very funny.
I can't even do it. Why am I
Hold on, what were the other ones on the list? I can go.
Bat?
Bat was scripted, but he's made a lot of that, and that's been fun. Mm-hmm. And Baby Colin saying "guess what" was based on my own kids, and the fact that children are, we love them, but they can be energy vampires in their own way.
Sure. Do the actors ever have writing requests for you guys? Like, how two-way is that street?
It's two ways. Sometimes they have ideas or thoughts or questions. I do remember like one of our best episodes that Stephanie Robinson wrote called Jackie Daytona. Originally, Matt thought that he should do it in an American accent because he was using so much American slang trying to be a normal American guy. And we did that once, and then we were like, you know what? Just use your regular voice and be saying things like, "Oh, I'm from Arizona," you know, and it was much funnier. And then also the stuff that we've done in the last few seasons with Guillermo's family. I usually sit down with Harvey and go over the Spanish translation and make sure that it's good. And then when he's on set with all the people who are playing his family, I encourage him to like monitor, but like let it be loose and stuff. And that's been some of my favorite stuff of the last few seasons is that family. And also doing it without any subtitles or anything, and doing it in this way where even if you don't speak Spanish, you could get the general vibe of what they're talking about. I think that's been a lot of fun.
I also ask that because I'm Iranian American, and it's very rare for us to have like not crappy representation. So I'm counting Nandor as being good representation for us.
Definitely.
So I am wondering, like, Kayvon is Iranian. Like, how much do you guys go to like him or to Natasha and be like, are there elements of being Iranian or being Greek that you want to incorporate?
A ton. I mean, the fact that that part originally was written sort of as just a vague ancient warrior, and then when we cast Kayvon, it became. I mean, we made up a fake
Al-Qanadar,
some former part of Iran or Iraq, and so we incorporate all that. And Natasha's parents are from Cyprus, and so her parents speak Greek, and so there's been more of that. And Mark Proksch is just, as Colin's DNA test said, 100% white. So we just include that.
Very good representation there.
Yes.
Yes, super positive. I mean, it does make me laugh that I am like super proud of this like incredibly vain warrior who brags about like.
But he has such a soft heart, also. It is nice.
Yes. So we sort of, to go back to the like box of ideas, the series has so much dense lore. Like we're talking about Laszlo's cursed witch's hat, the fact that witches use vampire semen for youth potions, Naja appearing in all this art throughout the years, Colin being 100 years old before he resets. Like there are all these various details. And I'm wondering if there is a system for when you decide to bring those items like back into the fold, or if it's more organic than what I'm imagining, which is like a spreadsheet of like, it's time to bring this back.
No, it's all panic and desperation. It's and even with most of those initial ideas, it wasn't like we'll start this and this will be part of the lore of the show. It's like, oh, okay, we need something here. Okay, that would be funny. And then when it works later, you're like, oh yeah, that thing we did that was funny before, we can use that instead of thinking of something new. No, there's like I said before, there's so much less forethought and planning that goes into it. But then as you do things that are funny, you naturally reach back to them, I guess.
I think we also try to resist reaching. Like, I feel like sometimes it's the type of thing where you're like, well, we could bring back Simon the Devious here, but maybe we rest him for.
No, yes, yeah, and everyone like, when's Jackie Daytona coming back? And we're all like, he's not. We're not going to beat that episode. You think you want it, and then as soon as he comes in, you're going to be like, oh, this wasn't as good as the first time. So no.
Is Jackie Daytona like the most requested? Do you have?
I would say so. Yeah, as far as when is he coming back? Definitely.
There is a lot about Guillermo and Nandor making out.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
And a lot about like the hybrid creatures. Just
Yeah,
like,
no, we'll get there.
It's
Yeah,
in the clip.
yeah.
I mean, from the episode you guys wrote, that one?
yeah.
Okay.
There's a
yes.
lot about that.
When are they coming back? Like right now? Yeah. Do you want to talk about the kissing now, or should we talk about the kissing later?
Talk about it now.
Okay.
I'm so thrilled to talk about it. Yeah.
We can talk about it later.
All right, we'll talk about it later.
We'll talk about it later.
All right.
Let's talk about clips first.
Yeah.
We're going to go through some episodes that you guys have written. I think a good one to start with is A Night Out with the Guys, which was written by Paul.
And everyone.
Yeah, so like let's talk about it. Let's roll the clip from this episode and then discuss.
All
right. I'm a big fan of the destruction that's been leveled on Staten Island with all of this hypnosis. But seriously, how do you guys treat the hypnosis as a writing device? Because it does sort of wipe out.
Here's
what
the problem with
seen.
hypnosis
Yes.
is that if you use it we are constantly making up rules about what will and won't work, because if you use it for anything, then anything can always be be undone. And in the upcoming season, we have a good episode about a new kind of hypnosis.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, it's so good. Right, Zach?
So what are some of the is it a limit of like we're going to use hypnosis 3 times this season, or just a matter of what feels right?
It's more a matter of just try not to overdo it, because it would like I said, it would mean nothing has any consequences. But that also is true of the show. These people have murdered hundreds of people in the 6 years that it's been on, and there's never a consequence.
I feel like it also sometimes like forces you to come up with things that would cause them to lose their hypnosis power, which has like been a little bit helpful for us. Sometimes it's like it feels sort of like when a horror movie comes up with a way that everyone lost their cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what can you do that would take away the get out of jail free card?
Where did the Captain Sully Sullenberger come from? Is Nandor a big aviation guy, or is he a big Tom Hanks guy?
No, that started with just the idea of what would make an entire station full of police officers salute them. It seemed like two American heroes, Captain Sully Sullenberger and Tom Selleck. Yeah.
I did work in a writer's room one time where there was a guy who, if he pitched a joke and nobody laughed, he would just shout, "Bird!" and to leave the room.
That's Rajat.
Bird.
Oh man, okay. Sean is such a perfect secondary character because he seems to understand that there is something like very unusual about his neighbors, but he also just like loves his boys and loves hanging out with his boys. And this season, Sean had one of my favorite bits, which is the "Hey, I'm being gay over here." So I'm wondering if you can talk about writing for Anthony Atamanuik. How do you guys approach working with him?
Sarah, you talk about it because of your past history with him.
Well, Anthony was actually my improv teacher at the Upright Citizens Brigade Theater in New York. Thank you. No, it was very exciting to see. I feel like you can really throw anything at him. He has absolutely no shame or inhibitions.
True.
And whatever you give him, he'll then run with it to the nth degree. So I think one of the things we like writing about him is that there's really no good reason that Laszlo loves him. He is a full idiot. But it's kind of just fun for him to have completely unconditional affection for this neighbor. And also shout out to Zach and Jake, who came up with "Hey, I'm being gay over here."
Yes.
Thank you for that. Very quoted in my household.
Yes.
Now let me ask what might be the most important question related to that quip. What do they say about Staten Island policemen?
I don't know what Laszlo was about to say.
I think it's something very flattering, though.
Yes. Obviously, very.
Seems like a trap.
Yes. All right. The memory wipe also comes up in what might be my favorite episode of the season, which we're going to talk about, episode 5, Local News, which is written by Sarah and also everyone apparently, but
Sarah wrote most of that one.
All right, primarily Sarah. Thank you, Sarah. I think we're going to roll the clip from this, which is also a couple minutes, and then we're going to talk about it. So let's do that. So Sarah, what I want to ask is that you've also written previous season episodes, The Curse, which is about the vampires being the target of like this email chain forwarding scam they don't understand, and The Casino, which was them going with Shawnee and Charmaine to Atlantic City. So I feel like there are these two ideas in those episodes, which is that the vampires are like flummoxed by like very easy human rituals, but they also love the idea of being like famous and special. I'm wondering if that's like a fair read of this episode, if it sort of came from that same place.
Yeah, I think we got really excited about the idea of like Nandor being kind of the person who happened to be on the street for a local news segment, and just him sort of stepping into that, like you said, maybe like enjoying being asked about it a little bit, but then them hyper overreacting to some very, very small misstep that no one really would have noticed anyway. I think one generally fun thing on this show is like stuff that wouldn't matter if the vampires freak out about it. You're like, oh, that's a big deal to them. Like the same with the email curse, something we would all delete, but they start like screaming, ringing bells, completely breaking down. But I think it really just started with the idea of it would be funny if Nandor got interviewed on the local news, and then trying to think of what the consequences for that would be. But
And that started on a card, 3x5 index card.
can you believe that?
Yeah,
Can you
and then
believe
have a whole
that?
episode.
Is that also how Nandor was in Jeremy and Rajat's videos? He was just there.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. I tried my best to bring it back.
That's nice.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're happy to be here.
So obviously, Nadia and Nandor sitting at the news desk is like very funny. Colin disappearing into the green screen, the guide and her victim. I guess I'm wondering how you guys find the balance in scenes like that between the characters. Like, is there a way to know we need Colin here or we need the guide here, or?
I mean, I think part of what was exciting about the idea of them taking on the local news was that everyone could be involved and have their little segment, like, you know, and then Laszlo will ultimately do the sports report, kind of have them do the most like straight to camera version, and because it's them, it's funny. But I think a lot of that was also, this isn't at all answering your question, but
No,
I
that's
just want
fine.
to say that Yana Gorskaya, our editor, and she directed this episode as well, a lot of it is her trueness to the local news format and coming up with some of those visual jokes that, like, even though the guy doesn't have a line there, gives her moment there. And
And Yana also directed the Go Flip Yourself episode, which was the episode that was a parody of a house
Right.
renovation thing. And it was fun just having someone who had such an attention to detail about that to duplicate, you know, that look.
You guys have a few recurring directors, right? Like you have Yana, you have Kyle. I'm wondering if you can talk about like working with the directors to sort of build What We Do in the Shadows world.
Yana edited the original movie and originally was an editor for the show, and then we asked her to try directing, and she was great at it, partially from coming from the editing room and knowing what you need and what you don't need. And then Kyle Newacek is our other main director who did Workaholics, and then our DP DJ Stipson also directed the one last year was his first time directing an episode, and it was the episode that happened to have Sofia Coppola in it and Jim Jarmusch, and it was like his first time directing was in front of all these other famous directors, so that was fun. And then Teague, who's our stunt coordinator, has also directed some of the most fun episodes. I don't know, what is it? Sam, fucking bail me out.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, so this sort of goes back to the Jackie Daytona question. So in this episode, Nandor is Nandor De Laurentiis, which, you know, could be Jada, could be Dino, like, who knows. Nadja's on the run identity is Sally Rhubarb. I'm wondering if there's a strategy to making up these names.
No, I think you made up Sally Rhubarb, right?
yeah.
Yes. It's just really funny.
Yeah, it just sounds like a girl who'd be on a farm.
A vampire's idea of what a girl would be on the farm. I think that probably also started with Stephanie's Jackie Daytona episode, because we had, you know, we talked about that episode a lot in the room, but it wasn't until she turned in her first draft that she gave him the name Jackie Daytona, and that really made me laugh out loud. And the other thing in that first draft that really made me laugh out loud was we said he'll have some kind of, disguise, and she had in her script he has a pair of blue jeans and a toothpick, and that was his disguise. It is funny I think some of the most fun stuff is when the vampires try to be like normal humans, and they're incredibly off and skewed idea of what normal humans do.
Sarah, did you come up with Nandor De Laurentiis?
No, that was actually, I think, Yana's pitch on the day.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's sort of just the magic of making television is that something can happen on the day. But no, it was really, I mean, it was one of those things where you're like, wow, that's a lot better than the joke I had in there. But also Jamie Lynn Watson, who plays the news anchor there, really rolled with it. And it's really funny.
She was one of my favorite. Jamie Lynn Watson, who played the news anchor, was one of my favorite guest stars because to do that sort of local news cadence and everything, even in her audition, it was just incredibly funny.
I guess it's time to talk about the episode that I actually had a nightmare about, which is hybrid creatures.
It was funny too.
It was funny, yeah.
Does the nightmare sort of have humorous elements?
No, it was really just like unsettling and bad.
Cool.
Yeah, it was great. Okay, let's roll this clip and then we can talk about it. Okay, so this is your first writing credit for the series. How did this become your guys' episode?
So basically, those index cards,
Uh-huh.
they were on the wall, and
Yes.
Paul-
Speak on that.
basically
yes.
they were 3x5 index cards. You can buy them anywhere, and Paul pointed to a column and was like, "That is going to be your episode."
That is actually pretty much what happened.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess, the index cards take shape over the course of the room. You combine stories together, and Paul pointed at that one and said, "You guys like fucked up stuff. Take that one."
Paul, is this correct? Is this true?
Yes, that is true. The other thing about that is that we wanted Rajat and Jeremy each to do a voice of one of the hybrid creatures, but then there was some legal or... How about now?
There you go.
There was some legal or technical issue that they couldn't, so...
Our record prevented us from hearing on television some of Rajat's crimes.
Vulture doesn't seem to have those standards. So
Absolutely not. We do not. If you want to do the voices right now, that's fine.
We did send in audition voice.
And they were good, too, but then, get your business straightened out, you guys. Come on.
I read in an interview with prosthetics designer Paul Jones that the frog hybrid was scripted, but the others were not.
Part of it was Paul Jones is great, and anytime you see a monster or a creature on there, he's done the prosthetics and created it. And with that, I said, the Island of Dr. Moreau movie, not the original good one, the remake one with Val Kilmer and Marlon Brando. That's our example. And I sort of said to him, what can you do? We want miniature Guillermos, and he came up with all those ideas of like a pig one and a dog one, and that particular kind of dog he thought would have a good Guillermo look. I think the rat one was also scripted, the weird little rat.
Yeah,
but that's part of the process. Go ahead.
Right. You wanted me to argue with you on the panel, right? Well,
Go ahead.
we also scripted a bunch of options.
That's right.
I'd love to know what those were.
Now I remember it correctly because when I sent them off with very little guidance, I'm like, you just do that. I think there were like 12 different hybrids. Yeah. And at some point I'd be like, guys, let's narrow this down. And that's when we said to Paul Jones, like, what is doable and what will look best. Yeah.
But this episode in particular is like a good example of how some of the challenges in just casting this show, because these are three little people who played these parts, and there was not really time to get a good audition, and there weren't many actors available who could do this, and so we rushed them into prosthetics, and Paul Jones, the prosthetics designer, sort of fixed them up in these different parts. But it turns out that like the guy who played the dog had trouble memorizing lines, so was not very good at that. The woman who was the lamb, who it turns out also worked at a weed dispensary, was the best actor and the best mover. Like, we might have moved some of these things around and changed the dialogue a little bit, but we just had like this challenge of like getting these people to fill this role. And it reminded me of, I think it's season 2, the witches episode. There's like this thing where they're sort of trapped in this weird funhouse room, and they keep opening doors, and there's one door they open, and there's like supposed to be somebody who's sort of skittering on her back with her head twisted around, and like sitting in that production meeting with the stunt coordinator saying, well, we have a contortionist, but she works in Vancouver now. We can maybe, so there was a really good one here in Toronto, but she just joined Cirque du Soleil. So I don't know who we're going to get to do this. And it's like that every week, basically.
The other funny thing that really made us feel like we were in show business was someone was walking down the hallway between takes and saw the tiny little lamb smoking a cigarette, which just felt like an old-timey movie about
That's
show
great,
business.
yeah. What were some of the other hybrid ideas?
There was one idea that was a mouse that looked like Guillermo but the mouse had curly hair, and the idea was that it came from one of Guillermo's pubes. And
Love it, excellent, yeah.
that was one that was nixed, I guess.
I think Paul Jones didn't have the technology.
Yeah,
I don't remember what the other ones
I
were.
don't really remember.
there were a lot
There's
of them,
possum.
and the episode for the upcoming season that we haven't shot yet that Rajat and Jeremy wrote. Again, I said to them, I can give away the joke. There's a part where they're talking about the different types of people who work in an office. And I said, just write as many in there as possible and we'll figure it out. And so it's like 6 pages and 18 examples of really funny stuff. And it's hard to cut them down, but eventually we figure out a way.
This is maybe like a very boring question, and forgive me because whatever it is, but I'll ask it anyway. When you are doing those lists, like how are you doing that brainstorming? Are you guys like very regimented with it, or is it more freewheeling? I like the laughter that's happening. Feels like a good answer is coming.
I guess I would say regimented because that sounds better.
Yes.
Sure, yeah, okay.
But I don't know. I guess we just sit in a room and like.
Wow. It's really no insight is gonna happen at this question.
We like Rajat and I like coming up with jokes and like funny details and stuff, and I guess we just sit and pitch jokes to each other, and there's a lot of silence, and we just whichever one makes
Sounds
us
great.
laugh.
No. We can go on for a bit. Yeah.
We can run the next 14 minutes
14?
on our
Yeah, we're
process.
good. Let's just do that. It's in a future episode, right, that the frog hybrids go home with the Baron and the Sire?
Yes.
So are all the episodes written concurrently, and so you have that idea and you know you're going to use it in the future? Or how does that, parceling out work?
We finished writing all the episodes before we start shooting. So, when you get to a later episode where you're like, oh, we got nothing here, we go, oh, let's just take that thing that was funny before. No, I mean, I think as we get closer to shooting, we look at the whole season as a whole and use and make it feel like we had really planned it out.
Jeremy and Rajat, I am going to reference some of your prior work, and I want to ask you, are the hybrid animals in expert mode or easy mode?
Okay, so no tuning out the news fans in the audience.
Wow.
Would you guys explain that for them, since they don't seem to know?
No,
Is
I'm
that
sure
okay?
everyone knows.
Yeah.
I think.
For silent recognition.
A silent nod of agreement, yeah.
I guess we played animated characters on a TV show, a streaming show called Tuning Out the News. And
What was it?
we did
like
a bit
with the bit was like with like a reporter.
David Ignatius.
David Ignatius, and
he had been reporting on
the coronavirus or something.
Yeah.
I think it was COVID, yeah.
Yeah. And he had theories, I guess, about he maybe was like an early lab leak kind of guy.
Yep.
Which we're gonna get into.
Yeah. No.
We came in and reported to him our theory about. Oh my God, I can't remember. This is.
Oh, keep going really
okay,
well. I'm very
just
glad
bear
I asked
with me for a second.
It was like animals were in like
snakes.
Snakes were in easy mode or hard mode. It seems like. Did you watch this recently?
We wrote about it, so then I watched it.
Okay.
And yes, it's like it's about how like COVID impacted animals, and like there's expert mode, which is that they're like threatening and violent, and then there's easy mode.
They
where
give
they're
you
just,
little
like,
kisses.
slithering around. They're giving you kisses.
Except the snake goes up to
exactly.
you and gives you little kisses.
It seems like the hybrid animals are like in easy mode. Like they're cute. They go and work at like
Yeah.
a nursing home.
They are.
They are.
Yeah.
I like this. We really explained it really well.
Check it out.
Tweeting out the news.
I think maybe now it's time, I guess, because we're in this like weird space. Should we talk about the Nandor Guillermo kissing? Should we talk about that?
Sure.
Okay, so people want it, right? But I know
Fine people. No, it's
I think certain people want it, but I also think we've asked you about this before, and you gave this answer, which I think is, we'll talk about it. Guillermo and Nandor is the greatest love story in modern television. It's just different than the way some people want it to be.
Yes.
And I ask this because in the last 2 episodes, like, the Derek, Nandor, Guillermo relationship is written in, like, a very, like, this was a moment of infidelity, but it's not sexual.
Yeah.
So I guess my question is, from a writing perspective, how do you write that in a way that sort of nods to those themes of it being romantic and a love story, but it's not explicitly romantic?
No, I think all of us, all the other people on this panel have definitely had the experience of having a boss that they worship and adore and love. And that's sort of what we're exploring there. No, I think there's a small subset of very vocal people on Twitter who are like, we want to see Nandor and Guillermo hook up. And we're always like, I think their love is bigger and more profound than that. And also, do you really want to see that? Do you know what I mean? Right. Was there a yes out there?
Someone said yes, yeah.
I also, and then times that we've talked about it and explored it, we're like, the power dynamic seems so problematic. I mean, that's his boss and all that. But Jake is just laughing at the situation I'm in here trying to explain this. I don't know. I really do think it's a great, profound love that doesn't necessarily have to be sexual.
Mm-hmm.
That's such a good answer, I think.
Thank you.
I remember when you said that thing originally, and I was like, that's so smart. Like,
Thank
that's
you.
just, come on.
Which
man.
one? You're Jeremy, right? Right. Yeah, I like that.
And you're such a good boss, too.
So that sort of dynamic is part of the end of the season, which is that Nandor kills Derek, which reverts Guillermo back into being human. Was there ever really an ending explored where Guillermo would stay a vampire, or does that like break what the show currently is?
We explored every possible ending. But the one we used was the best one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Sam?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, we have what?
And also, as with all of our endings of the season, we got there, Guillermo, this thing that he's wanted for 5 years. He finally got a taste of it for 2 hours, and then realized that he didn't want to actually kill people, that it was too painful for him, and he's back into a human, left us in a deep hole for what the next season is, which before the strike happened, we spent 3 months figuring out, and it's actually very fun and exciting, and we're going to start shooting it in January.
I mean, I will say, having written on Frasier, where like there was always this long will they or won't they between Niles and Daphne, and I remember the show creators were always saying like, well, if they get together, you're really killing the goose that lays the golden eggs. You should just tease that for as long as possible, and when people are sick of it, keep teasing it some more. And like, I think there's some truth to that you take a certain amount of energy out if you get them together. So, just it is kind of like, what do you want the story to be, and how does it make you feel?
The biggest challenge of the upcoming season was if Guillermo finally got what he wanted and realized that he didn't really want it, what does he want now? And it's going to be good.
And I think the thing is that, like, what I really liked about hybrid creatures, aside from like the Lynchian horror of it, is that Guillermo cannot kill these animals, right? Like, that's just not within his nature to do that. And then for them to be like in this restaurant where everyone else is feasting and Guillermo's just deeply uncomfortable, like, to make him into a vampire would sort of change the essence of that character.
Yeah. But go back to your dream. You never told us about the dream.
I really don't want to talk about
All right.
it.
There's no one here. It's just us.
I have this thing with Lynch where like I love him and I hate him. And there's this moment in Mulholland Drive where these characters are like outside of the door, right? And
The ones who come in underneath the door?
Yes.
Yes,
And
yes.
essentially what happened is the hybrid creatures did that and are just like outside my bedroom door trying to get in. And like they're adorable and they're very cute, but they were not adorable and cute in my dream.
Jeremy and Rajat, why did you do that?
It's
You
fucked
have-
up, you guys.
You know, you have some things you need to work through.
I really do. No, I really do. I want to ask, what is each person's like favorite thing about season 5? Doesn't have to be something you worked on, but just like the thing that you enjoyed the most. And I mean, you can get spoiler if you want, but what you're enjoying the most about working on season 6.
I don't know.
I
You
have
go.
a favorite moment of
Yeah.
season 5. I think when we were shooting the Pride Parade episode, Zach and Jake were in Toronto for that, and it was an unseasonably warm night in Toronto, and it was just like a full parade dance party on the street, and it was really, really fun. So I feel like this show, because it's about vampires, a lot of it can be kind of like 3 a.m. hard shoots, but it was a really fun just shooting moment. We love Zach and Jake, you guys. Okay?
Yeah, I think I would agree that like when the writers can all come up and we're there, then it really feels like you're in production, you're making a show, and it's very fun. And I do remember, I think Shayna was up with Jeremy and Rajat, and they were in Paul's apartment watching Paul play Sniper Elite, and like,
It's a really good video game, you guys.
and that to me felt like the most writers' room of basically of the show. And
I would like to point out that for budgetary reasons, we didn't have the money for like everyone bunked up with me and sort of Sam in our extra rooms in our apartment, so it was fun, right?
Right, and the sniper elite part was also because of the budget?
No, that was some very serious stuff.
They couldn't afford extra controllers for us. I guess.
do you like Nazis?
No.
Get into that.
Okay, we have. Did anybody else have anything about season 5 that you guys particularly want to praise, that you enjoyed, that you know?
I really liked that we weren't a part of the other seasons, but it was fun to see the outer space thing get
Yes.
done. That was really fun.
Yeah, I feel like there are a lot of individual jokes that really stick out. The Pride Parade stuff was so funny. I love that Guillermo had a sign that said "gay guy," which I think was Jake Bender's idea.
Yeah, I like that moment too because after all the talk about how they were going to have a special float, the float ended up being Guillermo on a flatbed truck with a sign that said "gay guy," and at first he's like sitting there, and then he's like,
At the very end,
yeah, he sort of
gets
gets into it
Yeah.
and decides it's fun. Yeah, I like that.
We have 4 minutes left, and I have a couple of like speed roundy, tell me the first thing that comes into your mind questions that hopefully don't suck. But if they do, that's fine. Tell me they suck. Okay, let me start with favorite vampire in all of pop culture outside of the show.
Either Blade or Gary Oldman in the Francis Ford Coppola Dracula.
I like the Catherine Deneuve in The Hunger.
That's a good
Sexy,
one.
sophisticated.
Tony Scott.
Damn. I guess you gotta go Brad Pitt.
Brad's a good one.
I guess Chunker in the Zany Chronicles.
And I'm going to go Harry Potter.
Thank you. Yeah. Vampire Harry Potter is such a cursed thing to even imagine.
Yeah, good luck trying to sleep tonight. Now
Yeah.
they did it to you again.
This is really helping me. Okay, so Colin Robinson's energy sapping activities have included office worker, local government candidate, inattentive waiter, child star, YouTube personality, night community college cool teacher. If there were no budget considerations, what would your dream job be for energy vampire Colin?
I don't have an answer for that, but I will say my favorite of all of his energy sapping things was the inattentive waiter, particularly the part where the person is giving the long, complicated order and he's not paying attention. They're like, "Do you need to write this down?" He's like, "No, I got it. That's my answer for that one.
And him calling it prosexy.
Yes, that was also good.
Based in real life.
Yes, that's right.
Are there any other jobs that have been like thrown around that you guys have said no to for whatever reason for him?
I think for a while, the idea of him being a politician, we were like, oh, that just seems so like politicians are boring. But then when we had the one where he was running for comptroller, that ended up being fun. So even the shittiest index card can yield a good episode eventually.
This is not even an expensive idea, but brother-in-law would be a great energy vampire.
A real glimpse into a certain kind of dynamic.
None of my family is here right now. So.
And they don't have access to the internet.
No, not at all. No, this is on lockdown. No one's ever going to see it.
My brother-in-law's not going to be on Vulture.com.
He will be if someone emails him.
Yeah. Are there any others? Any other dream Colin jobs?
Showrunner.
Hey.
Okay. The vampires all do a lot of reading. If they were to create a book club, what book would you like to see them discuss?
Harry Potter.
You?
Wasn't this an index card at one point?
I think it was, but it was Naja trying to hang out with normal human ladies in a book club and being disappointed to realize that it was just an excuse to drink wine and no one ever actually read the book. Not all index cards make it. You know, some of them just go right back into the box till next.
But the commentary is still trenchant. I mean,
yeah.
I would be interested in seeing them read Dracula, like Bram Stoker.
Oh yeah.
I wonder what they would think of that.
That's good because we always have fun things with the vampires. Like there was in this last season things that vampires lore that they've been told about, like if you, and this one I think it is from Dracula, that if you dump out a bag of rice, they have to count every grain before they can do anything else. So that was one of my favorite scenes in last season, was them going, "That's absurd, that's ridiculous," and they're like 1, 2, 3, yeah.
Okay, we're over time.
Oh shoot!
But if you were to write yourself into the show, what kind of role would you give yourself?
I'm just. Sam, go ahead.
Guy at a store.
you would kill that.
You're so Guy.
You're so good.
Sam is in an episode of Frasier.
Sam is in an episode of Frasier, and Sam is a voice in some episodes of Beavis and Butthead also. So maybe, you know what? Let's do this Guy at the store
there you
thing.
go.
Let's do it for next season.
There you go. I want to thank you guys so much for being here.
Thank you.
This was wonderful. Thank you all for being here as well. Do we have any kind of expected date for season 6, or is it just like keep an eye out?
I think it'll be like next summer-ish or something like that, but we got to shoot it first.
All right. Thank you guys so much. This
Thank
was
you,
wonderful.
everyone.
Thank you.